diagnosed with breast cancer at 48. My tumor fed on estrogen, a hormone that a woman's body is replete with during her childbearing years. So, to keep my cancer at bay, doctors put me into a chemically induced menopause. And the effects came pretty soon thereafter. I struggled with brain fog, hot flushes, depression, mood swings, and more that I will spare you. I'm a photographer by trade, so I began picturing what menopause looked like. I felt like I was falling apart. And I'm not doing myself any favors here, but despite feeling terrible, I believe it's important to show you, not only to tell you about the many symptoms of menopause, so that you might recognize them if you see them. Is this me? Is this my mother? Is this my wife? I want to spark curiosity, begin to prompt questions. And I was probably only a few years off from a naturally occurring menopause, but I realized I had no idea what this would mean for my body. So I began talking to other women, and I kept hearing this question repeated over and over again. How did I not know this was going to happen to me? Half of the world's population goes through the menopause, yet its often crippling symptoms are largely misunderstood, with little information trickling down to those who need it the most. Somehow puberty and pregnancy have gotten way more airtime. There's a lot of confusion and misinformation. That's why we need to be open and honest. We need to be curious, because menopause doesn't just affect the women going through it. It affects all of us. Okay, for some women, it's not a big deal, but hundreds of thousands of women are struggling, and so are their families and those close to them. You see, historically, it had not been seen as something important enough to need proactive attention, as women didn't live far beyond their childbearing years. Today, women live an average of 20 years after the end of their reproductive cycle. We need more information to make better decisions about women's health and well-being. I trained in news reporting and documentary photography. So when I first began my research, my first instinct was to look at what visual work had been done to illustrate the menopause. I was surprised to find that the imagery available is shockingly scarce, frankly uninspiring, and lacking in diversity. If you were to type the word menopause into your web browser, you could be forgiven for thinking only white women dressed in beige go through the menopause. Which they do. But where are the Black, Latina, and Asian women? So I set myself a task. I would begin photographing what menopause looked like in my hometown in Hertfordshire, beginning with my immediate circle. But how do you photograph how someone feels? How do you photograph something as abstract as a wave of heat rising from my friend Lisa Davis's pelvic floor, through her chest, up to her cheeks? You are burning, she told me. So I used red gels on fiber optic light brushes to paint her with light to simulate those hot flushes. Another symptom that kept coming up in conversation was brain fog. So I photographed Rachel Skelding standing in her kitchen, which I flooded with smoke, to evoke her brain fog. Luckily, her smoke alarm did not go off. Devika Chakraborty's children began to call her Mama T-Rex after her hormones went off sync. So we traveled to our local rage room where I photographed her bashing electrical appliances. Rachel Woods experienced crippling insomnia, a common symptom in menopause. I pictured her in bed using a green filter to mimic night goggles, bearing witness of her tossing and turning in the night. Carla Barajas cannot use hormone replacement therapy. Her tumor, like mine, is estrogen responsive. HRT would provide the hormones that her breast cancer thrived on. So she combats the effects of menopause with healthy eating and exercise. But for those of you who can use HRT, what does it look like? Well, it comes in many shapes. In this picture, Jane Barrett shows one iteration, the HRT patch. Jane suffered with brutal headaches for over a year, so much so that she thought she might have a brain tumor. But all her scans came out clean, and no treatment seemed to work. Then her doctor suggested, try HRT. And almost immediately, all her aches and pains were gone. The first time she used the patch, she slapped it on her thigh, only to find it at the bottom of her sock at the end of the day. She has since become more adept at applying it. I also photographed Tammy Lucker, who doesn't take HRT because HRT might not be for you. Tammy is an avid gym goer, and she hasn't struggled much. Here she is, channeling Shiva the Restorer. She wonders whether these weight-bearing practices might be working in the background to help her menopause symptoms. But you see, with each picture I shot, I went further afield, beyond my town, where I met Dr. Nighat Arif, who regularly visits mosques to speak to Punjabi women about vaginal atrophy and other unspoken subjects. She uses her language skills in Urdu and Punjabi to speak to women in the South Asian community. We don't have such a word as menopause in Urdu, she told me. So I replace it, she said, with words like banji, which means barren, or kaprakutam ho gaye hai, Punjabi for off the rag. Many women will celebrate the end of their periods, welcome no restrictions to attend mosque or partake in Ramadan. So they will refuse just about any treatment that might bring their periods back. But with this, they miss important opportunities to attend to symptoms before they become long-term health conditions. I met activist Karen Arthur. One reason she created her podcast, Menopause Whilst Black, was because she didn't see anyone who looked like her in the menopause space. You can hear the same story 6 or 7 times, but the minute you hear it from someone who looks like you, it will land differently. I photographed Diane Danzebrink, whose campaign Make Menopause Matter ensured that menopause was included in the secondary school curriculum and that every medical student will study menopause beginning this year. I sat for a cup of coffee with Rachel Weiss, a founder of the Menopause Cafe, a safe space where people from around the world can come together to talk about menopause. I visited with Member of Parliament Carolyn Harris, who has brought the topic to Westminster as a chair for the All-Parliamentary Group for Wellbeing in Menopause. And then there are the men, the male allies, like workplace leader Dave Messenger, who has created a friendly work environment for menopausal women at Watford Football Club. Now, who would have thought that a football club would be at the forefront of menopause-friendly policies? I photographed transgender poet Odran Thompson, who took his A-levels while going through the menopause at age 17, breaking into a pool of sweat and struggling with brain fog while he sat his test. And at times, things can go terribly wrong. The same age when women reach menopause is also a peak age for suicides. So I photographed Martin Weatherlift, whose wife Annette took her own life after a mishandled perimenopause. And then, as you saw earlier, I turn the lens onto myself and onto my children. This is my son, flooded with testosterone as my estrogen levels become depleted, making for a truly explosive atmosphere at home. These are some of the many people who generously shared their experience with me. Because although menopause is a natural hormonal transition, it doesn't only affect the women experiencing it. It could affect you or the person sitting next to you. If you have a wife, a mother, or a workplace colleague going through it, it could definitely touch you. With this ongoing series, I try to show the symptoms, how we cope, and the impact of ethnicity, culture, geography, and social economic status. One of the main problems in women's health is visibility. I hope that those looking at this more diverse sample of images can recognize themselves or someone close to them and seek help. Let's start a conversation on this largely unspoken subject that for too long has remained taboo. Those affected are speaking out. It's our turn to be curious, to link symptoms to diagnosis. We need to become aware of how our bodies are changing and how that impacts those around us. This could affect anyone you meet if you suffer or you see someone suffer. Let's stop being coy about it and take action. Thank you.